Hello and welcome. I'm Raziel, and so it's no secret, but I am really, really fussy about my models because, it's my money and it's my time, and I believe that it needs to be well spent. So when Games Workshop dropped the brand new Warsmith for the Iron Warriors in Horus Heresy, I thought, I do like the Iron Warriors. They are my favorite, and unlike their loyalist opposition, the Imperial Fist, they don't like dying as much, so they tend to be alive a lot longer. So when it came to this Warsmith, I was just taking a good look at it, and the first picture, and this isn't a negative video, this is actually quite positive, but this is what I would say was a boring pose. The first picture which you see up on screen now is quite boring. It's that usual Terminator stance, holding his hammer, gun pointing down, the usual thing. And when I do agree, Terminators tend to have that issue. They are Terminators, so they don't really have as much posability as, say, a normal Space Marine, a firstborn Space Marine. I can accept it to a point, but you do see this usual pose for Terminators and their lords, and it can be quite dull. Where there's a lot of great detail in it. I do like how the dangly bits, I don't know what they're called, are armored, and the armor is broken to give it more flexibility. That looks really nice. I like the Iron Warrior's skull upon his belt. It looks really nice. It's a well-designed model, and it really does look like an Iron Warrior. And not only that, it looks pretty good. I really do like it, and you can use this quite easily within 40k as well. It fits 40k as well as Horus Heresy. Another thing I like is how the skull is kind of on the helmet. It's got that Iron Warrior skull on his helmet and how his helmet is made. It adds a lot to it. But like I said, the pose itself is quite bland in the first picture. You, of course, have a choice to swap of heads, as always. And that's sort of the thing you would expect from Games Workshop. This would be it. You get the spare head and, well, pretty much nothing else. But they kind of surprised me, and this is why I like this model. You can reposition the arms to how he's holding his hammer. Now, I know this sounds weird, because this kind of shows my ire against the tactical rock. See, I've always said with tactical rocks, they tend to stagnate or make a model look static when it could have a lot more movement. And because this one doesn't have a tactical rock, the first pose with his hammer down and all that, he looks bland and boring. But when he's holding his hammer in both hands, that's just that little extra touch, and it's not much. All of a sudden, this model is far more impressive. It's far better, in my opinion. Suddenly, he's got this very slow movement attached to himself. He looks kinetic, not in that fast, super quick way, but that very slow, menacing, traitor, Space Marine sort of way. It's exactly what it should look like, and I think he looks great for it. And given the fact that you can have his weapon attached to his hip and not being held down, pointing at the floor, again, just adds a lot more character to him. And this has always been the thing I would expect from Games Workshop. This is the sort of ideals I actually go for, where you could have a model such as this Warsmith, and one pose is kind of bland, it's average, it's what almost every Terminator looks like. I was actually thinking Voldus at the time when I first saw him. And so you do have that kind of blasé, I would say, feeling. He's just going to be another cataphracty Terminator, just with an extra big hammer and the claw on his back. But soon as that arm moves across his body, he now has movement attached to him. Now he looks like he's actually going forward into battle. The legs remain. This is one of those really cool things about models, which I like, and in art as well. But just something as simple as that, because the legs remain in the same position, and they haven't changed. The way the body's positioned hasn't changed. The only thing that has changed is the way the hammer is. All of a sudden, he's moving. And this looks fantastic. And I think it's great. I think this is a nicely done bit of work. having that, number 4 on his arm, I think that's 4, yep, on his arm, showing it off at what legion he's part of, and the fact that he would look just as good in a Chaos Space Marine army with Iron Warriors is also amazing, because you've got all that nice sort of, that, what is it called? That trimming, that's the word, trimming. But it's not so overdone to be all spiky. It looks like an Iron Warrior from 40k as well as the Horus Heresy. And let's talk about this hammer. I like it. I think it looks exactly what it should look like. It looks like a big, hefty bit of rebar. It looks like it's going to smash a tank in half. This is exactly the sort of thing I would expect the size of a Warsmith hammer to be. Again, it's kind of that, as much as I hate nostalgia baiting and stuff like that, but this feels like proper 40k and Games Workshop models. It's over the top. It's completely, unfit for purpose. It shouldn't be this big, but it works so well within this theme of over-top fantasy, sorry, my stutter, I do apologize, science fiction. It's completely bizarre. It's completely weird. And I think it's amazing. And, you've got the normal arm. It's not the same arm that you see with everyone else. It looks more like a digger arm. And actually, my first thing was Red Dwarf and the Scutlands, to be honest with you. And again, this over-the-top look, this absolute menacing maneuver, which, again, that's what I mean. This is when I talk about position of miniatures, how they can be boring, and they only need a slight tweak. This shows exactly what I'm talking about. I'm not going to give him it. Look, is anyone going to give him that Brothers of Herd of Steel head? Make him Paladin Dance from Fallout 4? No, it's a silly head. I don't like it. Give him the skull head. And that's another cool thing about it. Like, if you want, if you remove the arm, he would look good as a chaplain as well. And if you're doing a little bit of conversion and a bit of trimming, if you're doing something like a Death Wing, trim off the bit, you can make him a Death Wing chaplain. Take the head off the hammer, get rid of some of the Iron Warrior emblazions, whatever you're called, and this would look good as a Death Wing Terminator in chaplain armor, because it's got the same sort of head, that skull face, metallic skull face, and it looks good. I have very little complaints about this. I think what they should have done, in my opinion, if they were to advertise this on their site, they should have put the optional one first with the extra arm and the way this hammer is positioned, because it looks like I said, it looks like it's moving. And it is, again, just this very small tweak which makes it look good. So yeah, I have no complaints. And that's the really cool bit about it. That just this it's such a small extra detail. And if you think about it, really, it shouldn't work. Having his arm like that shouldn't all of a sudden give him movement from the first picture. But it does. It gives him this very cool bit of movement, and the arm looks good, even though it is a Scuttler from Red Dwarf. And yeah, I've got to say, I actually quite like this. I wanted to talk about this because I'm an Iron Warrior fan, and next week I'm going to actually be doing Conquest and Mantic, because there's two armies I want to talk about next week, because Christmas and snow. If you know those games, you can Kings of War and Conquest, by the way. If you know those games, you pretty much know which two armies I'm going to be talking about. I might delve into some of the lore as well of the two factions as well, because they're kind of cool. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. This was, like I said, this is exactly what you should expect from Games Workshop. Something like this, where just an extra optional piece changes the entire model. It makes him go from a flat, boring stance to suddenly a fantastically kinetic, awesome looking model. And if you are to get this, I would definitely do the hammer across his body over the usual heroic Terminator stance. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, as I said, and I'll see you all in the next one. And well, I'm sorry I had to just do the 3 pictures. My screen recording stuff's gone tits up, so I do apologize. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. If you want to save money on your Warhammer and Wargaming up until the 16th, I believe Wayland Games will have it delivered before Christmas, I believe, and you can have up to 20% off. We deliver after £20, and you have their point system, which is basically an extra 1% off. There is also Forbidden Planet comics, DVDs, mangas, etc. My merchandise, my comics. If you want to see Little Red Riding Hood, go absolute ham on some Lovecraftian cyborg werewolves. And there's Skyforge. Never forget Skyforge, good friend of mine. And of course, Patreon because business. Bye bye.